The Friday Rugby Preview on Borders Rugby Radio with Stuart Cameron.
Hello and welcome to the Friday Rugby Preview programme. I'm Stuart Cameron. With me this week is Dale Clancy, and we'll be taking a look at the weekend's fixtures involving Borders teams. Only 5 playing because of the international between Scotland and Fiji tomorrow, but some important games nonetheless. No commentary match on Borders Rugby Radio tomorrow, by the way, because of the international. But of course, you can watch the game on Amazon Prime or the radio commentary on TalkSport with Stuart McFarlane, Chris Patterson and myself. More on the Fiji game later, but Dale, let's start with the Premiership. No games tomorrow, but let's reflect on last week's matches where Hawick remain top of the table, but only by 1 point after their win against Selkirk.
Yeah, I thought the game on Saturday past was pretty interesting. Going into the game, I did say that I thought Selkirk were favourites because the form that they've shown, the depth in their squad. I've been very impressed with the way that they've started the campaign, but I think it did really highlight the depth that Hawick have in their squad. You know, they were comfortable throughout. You know, it wasn't a classic by any means, but I think in terms of their squad, they look different. They look like the team that have learnt the most out of last year. I would certainly say they're favourites for the championship so far. They need to get themselves in a position where it's knockout rugby. They're starting to do that. You know, they're unbeaten. They've probably avenged the draw that they got at the start of the season, but I don't think that plays in their mind. I just think they want to continue building momentum, keeping it going and aiming towards getting at least a home semi-final, because, you know, this league, it's a funny league. Everybody looks vulnerable, but it's certainly they can get themselves in a good position, get a home semi-final and try and potentially get a Premiership final at Mansfield Park.
If there is an issue at all with Hawick, it's the fact that they don't get try bonuses, and we've seen that they've got 4 this season. Edinburgh Accies have 7, Curry have got 8.
It was an issue that plagued them last year as well. When they were winning games, they were getting good momentum, but they were, failing to pick up that 4th try. Did it again at the weekend. Did they have many opportunities to pick up that bonus point? I don't think so. I think they took their opportunities when they were available. Their defence is strong and intense. So, yeah, that's probably the next part of their game. Obviously, the introduction of Ethan Riley, he looks like an exciting prospect as well. So that might be the type of player that they need, because you look at Hawick 5 years ago to now, they've went through a huge transitional phase. And if you ask me about a player like, say, for example, Kirk Ford is an instrumental part of the Hawick team now. They rely on him. They've got good cover there in 15 and 10, him and Bailey Donaldson. I think the centres, Grant Huggan played really, really well at 12. Andrew Mitchell outside him at 13, very good. Perhaps at scrum half, they need that depth, and they need somebody who can really bring the backs to life as well. And I think Ethan Riley, looking at his highlights, is maybe one of those players, because up front, I would argue there's not a pack that is as strong as Hawick this season, where you do have teams in the past like Curry, Mar. You know, they're big, dominant teams up front, and I think Hawick have the upper hand on them too.
What's interesting, though, also is the fact that some of these clubs that didn't have wins at the start of the season beginning to actually get the victory. Heriots at Edinburgh Accies, for instance. Hamilton in Division 2 finally got a win at the expense of Berwick. Aberdeen, 2 wins now in National 1. So, we are seeing in the second part of the season that clubs that weren't so great early on, could well turn the corner.
Totally agree with you. I think that, you can see these teams starting to pick up results and find a bit of form. You don't know. It's always a difficult thing in club rugby, is to find out what the squads are like. They're so changeable because, you don't get the same squad each and every season. Some squads do luck out. Hawick have had the same nucleus for a while. Mar did. You can see what's happened to them when they lose a lot of players and they're successful. Same with Curry. Edinburgh Accies perhaps were building a team, but it was an Edinburgh derby, so Heriots pick up the win. It's more difficult in this landscape now to try and predict results, because it's almost sometimes more amateur than it has been in previous years. The face of a team one week can be completely different. It's not always because of injury. It can be because of work. It can, we've heard Peebles, they work offshore, so some players are just not available. So it can really have an impact. Another thing is Super 6 players. We don't know what an impact that's going to see yet, because that doesn't just filter into the Premiership. That can go further down. So, in terms of trying to predict the results, it's difficult. But even the Aberdeen game that you're on about, it's almost like a kind of Caledonian derby between Dundee. So we could have quite easily seen a Selkirk victory against Hawick because it's a derby. Heriots against Edinburgh Accies is a derby. Aberdeen Dundee is potentially a derby in that league as well. So sometimes the rub of the green goes the way that you don't expect it.
Let's quickly talk about Selkirk and Jed Forrest. Selkirk have now had 2 difficult home games against Curry and also against Hawick, of course, but 2 home losses without any points.
But I think if you asked Scott White at the beginning of the season if they were going to be in the position that they're in now, would he have taken that? And I think he would have. Maybe he wouldn't have taken the last three results. Like he did say, the three games were going to be big. The victory against Mar, and then obviously a defeat against Curry and against Toik. But all those games, they were well within winning them. And obviously that is the biggest margin of victory Hawick have had against Selkirk in 4 years, because over the last few seasons there's only been the gap of 7 points. So, they're competitive, they're getting there, but obviously the results have not went their way. But I think in the context of their season, and Jed as well, like context of their season, where they were at the start, off the back of a bad campaign, the reaction from both of those clubs has been brilliant. And you look at when we talk about community clubs and we talk about the ethos inside it, Selkirk's crowd at Philippock at the weekend was huge. I thought it was really big. It was a great atmosphere at the ground. And then you look on social media with Jed Forest launching their new training facility. That is what club rugby is all about. That's the community clubs that are great, and certainly in the south of Scotland. But that's they then can then build on that. Now Jed can hopefully try and attract more players, get better quality, improve what they've got within, and hopefully consolidate themselves in the Premiership.
So no Premiership games tomorrow, but National 1, just the one National 1 game. It's Dundee against Kelso. An early start, 11 a.m. kick-off. Let's hear from Director of Rugby at Kelso, Neil Hinnigan.
The match has been played at Morgan's Academy due to it being a 11 a.m. kick-off due to Scotland International, and Dundee have school games and such like at their home pitch. So the match has been moved over to Morgan's Academy, which is just a mile or so along the road. So we'll look forward to it. We've come off the back of our first defeat to Melrose on Saturday, and obviously, there's a bit of raw feeling there, and it was a game we could have won. It's not a should have won for me, it was just a could have won. It could have went either way. Melrose certainly deserved their victory as well. They put a lot into the game to get the result, and it was very, very fine margins. We let ourselves down to concede the try that ultimately won them the game, and we just feel that was probably the pivotal moment. And we've got to dust ourselves down quickly and go again. I think that's the good thing for us playing a week later compared to everyone else, that we've lost the game and we don't want to let it linger for too long. So the team gets a chance to go out and put things right this week at Dundee, and it's a match that I know everybody says every week that I'm a little bit touchy about our hopes and everything, but we've only won once in Dundee in about 20 years, certainly my memory. It's a difficult place to go. We lost up there last year. We kind of let ourselves down. It was probably one of our worst performances last year, so hopefully we can right a lot of wrongs. I think the players are aware of that, so obviously off the back of the defeat last week, we've got to get better quickly and get back on the horse, and we'll see how it goes. There's a few changes. I've mentioned it before, but the Fiji pitch seems to be a problem for us. We just get injuries. We've got a couple of guys out with knees and ankles and feet and such like. So Ewan Knox drops out, so hurting his foot. He actually hurt it before the game and played with it. Obviously, our tight head prop Alan Frame went down after 5 minutes. Our full-back Liam Herdman is injured for 2 or 3 weeks at least, maybe longer. We don't know the full outcome yet of that. He hurt his knee. So there's a couple other guys bumps and bruised at the moment, and we're just waiting to see if they're fit. But the team will be still fairly settled-ish, and we have got a fairly strong squad at Kelso over this sort of piece of the whole thing. We've got guys that can step up. So we should be fine. We can't finalise the team at the moment. Everyone knows what's at stake, and we just got to go there and try our best to get the win. Ultimately, just get that win and get back on the horse.
Neil Hinnigan.
The beauty of Kelso is they've got quite a bit of squad depth just now, but there's always talk about the 3G surface and how it can bring around injuries, and that's just up for debate. Some players love playing in it and some players don't, and you get injuries on grass pitches as well. So sometimes I think it's sometimes just some players don't like playing on it as well, and that can sometimes play in your mind because you maybe don't commit to that tackle the right way or how you should, or you don't carry the right way, or you don't clear out. There's obviously the thing that sometimes your feet can get stuck underneath you, but injuries are going to happen, and no matter what paddock you play on. So, but for Kelso, I think there are 3 difficult injuries to try and cover because they've had a really, really good start to the campaign. Obviously, they'll be disappointed with the defeat against Melrose, but there was a result like that coming. Kelso have been playing really well, but there has been waves and fits where they have looked again vulnerable. They've looked like the other team could really get at them, and It's been a good result. It's been a good result for Melrose that day. But we did look at the teams and we thought, oh, that's quite a strong Melrose team as well. And at the Greenyards, they've obviously just managed to sneak the win. But Kelso will be looking to try and get it's a nice early start, but they'll be looking to try and rectify that straight away, which is great for them because they get a reaction straight away. It doesn't allow them to linger and the disappointment from a defeat against Melrose to last a week or two. They just get straight back at it.
Kelso on top 34, Ayr 33, Gala 31, Melrose 30. Highland really need to start winning if they're going to be competitive with those four other clubs there. They're on 23 at the moment. And then you've got Biggar and Stirling on 18. Aberdeen picking up now, as we mentioned, 2 wins, but Stumel not in a healthy position. Watsonians, GHK and Dundee currently in a bit of a dogfight that obviously could change in the latter part of the season.
Yeah, and obviously the leagues are being jiggled about this year, so it's going to be an interesting end to that campaign. I think the difficulty that you look at that league there, and you've got Aberdeen and you've got Dundee at the bottom, like down in that area. I do worry about rugby in the north of Scotland because I think that to have a national game, it needs to be strong all over. With Dundee and Aberdeen not going so well in that one, it's all very central belt, west coast and south of Scotland at the moment in the top 3 leagues anyway. So it's a funny one for Dundee because they've definitely not got consistency. But it comes back to the whole thing about this league. It's very difficult to predict the results.
OK, International 2 and Peebles are playing tonight. It's down to 7:30. It could be a little bit later, they're telling me. Head coach for Peebles, and that is, of course, Ian Chisholm.
This week's about consistency and execution for us. We've shown over the last couple of weeks that when we're disciplined, physically, emotionally and tactically, the opposition really struggle to keep up with us. How we're periodising the game, it's working effectively for us, and the boys all understand that it's a squad effort and their role is important to the team regardless of the number on their back. Last week we made a lot of errors against Kirkcaldy, but none of these are effort errors. We're trying to push the ball, we're trying to push the tempo, and we're trying to be brave with the ball. So me especially, we've got to expect that we'll make skill errors every now and again. I don't think you can go and say we want to play a fast offloading game and then get angry and have poor body language on the touchline. If when errors happen, it's a slow process, and it's a decision making thing. And I don't overly believe that you can coach decision making. I think you can facilitate it and pose questions and pose ideas and try and get their understanding and maybe give them wee hints and tips of where we can go. But I think that's something that comes over a long period of time. The key for us is not to compound error on error, and if we do feel under the pump, we can kick the transfer pressure if we need to, but at the same time, if it's on, we'll back the players to go when it's on. We've actually got a really good group of coaches in that too, and so far the coaches that I've spoke to were really open about sharing game tape and speaking about what's worked against certain opposition and what hasn't, and we've been able to watch a few of Boroughmuir's games and we know that they're a young mobile side, and to be honest, we've probably struggled against teams who play multi-pass plays more so than the teams that play direct. I think we're quite good at soaking up that physical pressure, and the boys they're quite happy to get off the line and hit people. So we've worked a wee bit on getting a wee bit more width defensively and having our collision winners a wee bit wider. So with the ball, we need to start spending more time in possession. Everything we do is geared towards keeping the tempo high, and we want to have a high ball and play time so that we can challenge defenders, particularly around the last 20-30 minutes of a game. But we need to do this tough stuff first in the first hour, and we want to make the front 5 move, tackle, get up off the ground, scrummage, maul, chase, kicks. So when that last 20 comes, we know that we can lift the intensity and we'll have an edge over them. Really hopeful that we do get this game going ahead this weekend. If we've got weather like we did last night, then I imagine Edinburgh Leisure they'd quite like to pull the plug again. So we're looking at reversing the fixture as an option should that be taken out of Boroughmuir's hands. Front row for Friday night is much the same. Neil Hogarth, John Napier and John Gray start. They'll interchange quite regularly with Willie Aitken and Andrew Brown coming off the bench. Lewis Copeland steps up to the bench, and Copey he can cover anywhere in the front row all the way back to number 8. Ross Brown he's got a bit of an ankle injury after Friday night, so he takes a week off. Finlay Collins will move into the back row and he joins Cammy Pye in the second row. Ro McKeever He's back for working on the boat, and he joins two teenagers, Ewan Hunter and Finlay Sinclair, in the back row. Both these boys are fresh off playing for Edinburgh under-19s on Tuesday, and they both did well. The only change in the back line is Adam McDonald. He comes in for Murdo Anderson, Murdo's getting a really well-earned holiday with his young family. Adam he's been out for a wee while with a leg injury, so it'll be nice to have a centre playing centre this week, and I think he'll bring a lot of positivity to our attack, and he'll bring energy to us as well, and I'm hoping that it'll allow us to play a wee bit wider this week. Rob Harrison, he's unlucky to not be back in his favoured 6 jersey. Rob's brother Jack was due to play at 13, but he's struggling with a hamstring niggle, so that keeps Rob in the centres. But Rob he just does what Rob does. He runs about, he hits folk, he gets on ball, and he's always optimistic with the ball, and I love that about him. James Dow, Scott Stoddart and Frey McKeever, they make up the back three. Really loved what these boys done on Friday night at Kirkcaldy. It wasn't a great night. It was wet, it was windy, but they were able to get their hands on ball a lot, particularly Frey McKeever. He was quite influential in a lot that happened, and again, talk about optimistic with the ball in hand. I really like what he's doing, and it was great to get Scotty Stoddart back again. He needs a little bit more running volume in the legs and more game time, but he had some really nice touches, particularly coming off his wing and supporting Donald Anderson. Number 19, Buster Davidson, he comes out of the bench, and he'll get some valuable game time off the bench. What position that'll be in, I don't know yet. We're just going to play it by ear, but excited for Friday, and hopefully we can get the game going ahead.
Always a good insight, isn't it?
No, I think it's refreshing to hear, because he's obviously passionate about coaching. He did a great job with Melrose when he's taking on the youths. I remember him with the under-16s game, and they were on the end of a heavy defeat against Peebles, and he was still as enthusiastic as ever. And I like his energy that he brings to the team, and obviously to his analysis as well, because it's absolutely tip top. But again, with Peebles, they've put in a great performance against Kirkcaldy. Kirkcaldy are a team that have been playing okay. Went down to Scremerston, obviously, and picked up a result. They're a difficult team, but as Ian said, if Peebles play well against teams that are direct, that they can soak up pressure. So, and that's exactly what Kirkcaldy play like. I think he's just brought something different. I think as I've said it before, he's brought rugby to Peebles Rugby Club, because it's a great social club. It's a great place. The people are brilliant. The members are great there. But I feel they've always lacked that rugby culture, and that's exactly what Ian Chisholm brings. So a good game for them. They'll be looking to try and build on the victory that they got against Kirkcaldy, because I think they're probably now starting to think, with the players that they've got, and the performances that they're putting in, they're probably starting to think they could get out of National 2. Difficult league, very difficult league, because teams can cut each other's throats with the likes of Dumfries. We did see, as you mentioned, Hamilton got the win against Berwick. There's nothing to say Boroughmuir can't win under the lights at Meggetland, in their home patch. They've not been going well, but that's not out with the realms of possibility.
Berwick are at home to Glasgow Accies, who are currently top of the table, so Berwick can do Peebles and themselves a bit of a favour. Here's Berwick coach Paul Pringle.
The lads are really looking forward to the match against Glasgow Accies this week at Scremerston. It was a tough loss last week away to Hamilton, who thoroughly deserved their win. We felt we certainly had more than enough possession to get the result. It was just one of them days, but the lads have put a hard week in. We're certainly looking forward to the match. We know it'll be a tough one. We welcome back to the squad Nathan Melrose and Duncan Hardy. We've got Ben Nicholson's away travelling, and James Grieve is away with work, so it's just a straight swap in, swap out for those guys. The rest of the squad's largely unchanged, and we're just looking forward to getting back onto the paddock and putting things right from last week.
Yeah, and last week Hamilton beat them, and as we said, we could see Hamilton getting closer and closer, getting within 3 points in a 69-point game against Preston Lodge at Preston Lodge, who of course turned over Peebles. So you knew that there was a victory in them, and of course they raced to that 28-0 lead, and Berwick never recovered from that. But as Paul Pringle just said, they can certainly right a few wrongs tomorrow. Yeah,
it's a good opportunity for them. I think they've settled well into this league, but it's always going to be difficult when you step up. You've had success in the leagues below, and then you go up a level, and then that's when you find out, where you're truly at, because obviously they went on that long unbeaten run at home, being relatively untested, and then they step up the leagues and they're really getting challenged. But Glasgow Accies, Peebles got a really good result against Glasgow Accies, and if anything, it surprised me. So there's nothing to say that Berwick can't do exactly the same. But as you say, with this league, like PL, absolutely hammered Peebles. It was close between Peebles and Berwick, but then Peebles absolutely hammered Kirkcaldy. So, in terms of the balance of the results in this league, it's difficult to call. But the good thing from a Borders point of view is Peebles are up towards the top, and Berwick are really, I think, settled themselves in that league, and it's a building year for them, perhaps.
East 1, Duns are playing tonight at Livingston. And finally, on Sunday, unbeaten Kelso ladies, they're at home to Dundee Valkyries' second team, trying to protect their unbeaten record this season. Of course, they played earlier in the season, and a big win for Kelso. Here's the Kelso ladies' captain, Donna Borthwick.
We've really improved since the last time that we played them, and the coaches have been working really hard with us to improve on everything that we need to improve on. The team's been working really hard twice a week. We've had really good numbers at training. So this week we've got the return of Lee Johnston in the front row, so we're looking forward to her for her first game of the season because she's not been available. She's really looking forward to a good run out. Our back line is looking good as normal. We've been working hard this week on communication and how to improve on that in the back line, and we're really looking forward to welcoming them at Pointer Park. Hopefully we'll get a win.
There we are. So a very confident Donna Borthwick there, and rightly so.
Yeah, I think they've got every reason to be confident. They've started really, really well, putting some good results. Been a bit disrupted with a cancellation here or there, and I think after the last few years, in terms of the way that Kelso Rugby Club with the ladies section has had a bit of turbulence over the last few years, it's just nice to see them getting out on the field again. And on Sunday they'll get another opportunity to get out there, try and put in a performance and get another victory.
So not many matches going on tomorrow, and of course a couple tonight as well, but a full programme of events on November the 12th, and the reason for that is of course the New Zealand game with Scotland and New Zealand taking place on the Sunday the 13th, and we'll be having a look at a Fiji match in a second, go through the team for you, but before I do, you were at the Super 6 final. It was a very exciting one, went to extra time of course. It was Ayrshire Bulls against Watsonians coming out on top on that, but as we've mentioned, and you certainly have mentioned, it's a great standard. It was a great advert for the league. Yeah,
the game itself is one of the best games I've seen in a long time, to be fair, and it was good to be involved. Enjoyed it. The level of rugby and the physicality was unbelievable. If you do get a chance to watch it, I'd watch it back because it was good rugby. Sometimes, if you take the game before on the Saturday, it was played between the 22s and it was a bit of a damp squib, but the Watsonians Bulls game was played pretty much in the 22s. It was end to end. It was really good. And it was exciting as well. So it was a good advert. The thing that was the disappointment was the fact that it was a good atmosphere there at the ground. But there could have been more done in terms of some sort of initiative. If you'd bought a ticket for the Autumn Internationals, you could have got in free, or you could have got in for £1 or whatever. You buy a ticket for £1. So there perhaps needs to be a little bit more work between Super 6 and the community and the club game. Could you imagine that game if that was a full capacity crowd at Damhealth? It's got a great atmosphere in that little stadium when Edinburgh have been playing, and we've covered the youth Shield finals there. The atmosphere of the parents that were there and the girls teams that were there was really, really good. But I think if you could expand that and get a few more folk in that stand for that game, it would have been a brilliant advert for the Super 6. But the rugby itself did the talking, but there's certainly more that could have been done.
It's what happens now. Have you heard anything? Because obviously you were part of the Premier Sports team with Jamie Lyle and Lee Jones there. What have you heard? Anything?
I've not heard anything. I was going to actually ask the question to see if there was any steer to say what is the guidance in terms of the players that are involved, because that's the thing. But I've not heard anything. I've worked alongside Nicky Walker at Borders College, who was the successful coach, obviously the backs coach for Watsonians. We've not had much conversation about what happens next year, and I think maybe there's an assumption that it goes again and it continues. But it remains to be seen. I don't know what the plans are for next season. There's obviously work in the background to have a championship again. Whether they have a sprint in a championship, whether they've got something in the pipeline that they're going to be announcing, I don't know. I do know that obviously as you say, the quality of rugby was really good, but where it goes from here for next season, I'm none the wiser.
We will see what happens. I would love, for the players' point of view, for them to get extra games against different opposition. That's something for the future. Let's have a look at something which is happening tomorrow. It's the 5th of November, 1 o'clock kick-off for Scotland against Fiji. Vern Cotter has described this as going to be a bit of a training run for Scotland for the two matches that Fiji are playing, simply because he's hardly had any time with the Fiji players.
Yeah, I don't think Fiji players need much time together. They've they're
Individual brilliance.
They're just habitual rugby players. They're able to throw the ball about at will. They're physical. They like it. They like the physicality of the game, but they've got so much flair. And I think it's a tricky tie for Scotland. The squad is strong, I think, in terms of it. John Barclay was speaking on Amazon about it being a build-up. They'll reshuffle and give some people opportunities against Fiji, but then we'll see the true Scotland team in the New Zealand test, which is obviously on the Sunday the 13th. So I think the squad is strong. I think Ollie Smith put in a really good performance, in his Murrayfield debut. He'll put a bit of pressure on Hogg, but I don't think he'll dislodge him for the New Zealand game. I know I'm looking into the future, but there is talk, obviously, Russell coming back for the New Zealand game as well, which would be really interesting. So I don't know how that works, because obviously Kinghorn was in at 10. I thought he played okay. I didn't think he was a brilliant 10, but there was bits of brilliance in there because he's a class rugby player. He knows how to play rugby. He's very, very quick across the ground. He's intelligent. I just think he's a bit stagnant when he's a 10. So if Finn Russell does come back in and Hastings starts this weekend, Ross Thompson's been dropped out. What does that mean? Where does Kinghorn sit with this in terms of his man management? It'll be interesting to see. But on the whole, I think it's a strong squad, but it's going to be a test because Fiji are a good rugby side. It's going to be a Scotland win, I think. The price is a solid 9. Hastings deserves a shot of trying to stake a claim for this 10 jersey, because I feel for the first time in a long time it's actually up for grabs in Townsend's eyes anyway, and Hastings has been playing well for Gloucester. You bring Chris Harris in there as well, who's defensively very strong, but he's quite productive in attack. Hopefully the combination of Price and Hastings releases our wingers a little bit better, because they didn't get much of a chance. But certainly up front, Gray and Gilchrist in the second row is really interesting, and it's a typical back row as well. Jamie Ritchie we thought was really good as a captain, played well in the back row. He managed to steal some ball. He was in the ref's ear. He led his team pretty well. And then hit Watson and Fagerson in the back row. I think we've got, that's your first choice back row anyway, no matter what happens against, this game going into New Zealand. That'll be the 6, 7, 8 we'll probably see against New Zealand.
So we've got the 15-14 Hoyt combination at the back, Stuart, Hogg and Darcy Graham. Also, another Hoyt man, Rory Sutherland is on the bench, and he'll come on. No doubt they'll put the whole front row change round about the 55-minute mark. It's almost becoming predictable now. Yeah,
but I think you see now that it's definitely a squad game. You see it in football. They've been talking about Ronaldo and obviously going off and going in the huff. It's a squad game now. Elite sports is about the depth of your squad. It's not about your best 15 players. It's evolved and it's adapted. Sutherland has had a great first few games for Ulster as well. There was a highlight reel of him making 2 turnovers in 1 minute. Good to see him find a club so quickly. But he's important to the Scotland squad as a whole as well, because now we've got genuine depth in that front row.
Well, finally, we'll talk about Richie Gray, but which one? Because we have Richie Gray running out in the second row for Scotland, and of course, we have Galashiels, Richie Gray, who is part of the coaching team, of course, of Fiji.
Yeah, he's like water, he gets everywhere, doesn't he? He's been in every nook and cranny in rugby over the world over the last kind of decade, but it's good to see. He's done really well for himself, I think, and certainly his inventions with the early days with Rhino, I think it was, wasn't it? And his stuff's been well utilised, and he's obviously really, really highly valued in the rugby community. So, in terms of Gala, Richie Gray, it's great to see. But I think Richie Gray's due a little run back in the Scotland team. He's been putting in some good performances for Glasgow. Johnny Gray's been playing well for Exeter. He's been a mainstay in the Scotland team for a while. Richie Gray was the one that was meant to be our second row for years, and he was meant to be one of our best players, and kind of when he went away to France kind of died a little bit in terms of his fancy in Scottish rugby. But a bit of experience in there. We've got Grant Gilchrist and Richie Gray, so it's going to be an interesting game come Saturday.
Well, that's just about it for today. My thanks to Dale Clancy. No show tomorrow, as we've said, but we'll be back on the 12th of November covering Hawick against Jed Forest at Mansfield Park. We'll see you then for that, but for now, from Dale and me, bye for now.